For many American households, driving is no longer just the cost of filling the tank. It is the car payment, the insurance bill, the repair invoice, the registration fee, the tires, the interest on the loan, and the depreciation that begins once the vehicle is owned. After all of that, the fuel still has to be bought. That is why driving has become a larger part of the household budget. For families who depend on a vehicle, driving is not a luxury expense. It is how people get to work, take children to school, buy groceries, reach medical appointments, run errands, and keep daily life moving. When driving becomes more expensive, the pressure does not stay at the gas station. It moves through the entire household budget. In 2025, AA estimated that the average annual cost to own and operate a new car was $11,577. That estimate included depreciation, finance costs, fuel, insurance, license, registration, taxes, maintenance, repairs, and tires. The number was $719 lower than the year before, but it still shows the scale of the expense. Owning a car is not one payment. It is a collection of costs that continue long after the vehicle is purchased. AA's 2025 study used an average sales-weighted MSRP of $38,938. It estimated depreciation at $4,334 per year. Finance costs were estimated at $1,131 per year. Insurance was estimated at $1,694 per year. License, registration, and taxes were estimated at $813 per year. Maintenance, repair, and tires were estimated at 11.04 cents per mile. Fuel was only one part of the total. That is the first important point in the driving cost story. Gas prices matter because they are visible and immediate. But the real cost of driving is broader than gasoline. By mid-May 2026, gasoline had become a major pressure point again. AA listed the national average for regular gasoline at $4.51.7 per gallon on May 16, 2026. Earlier that month, AA reported that the national average had reached $4.55 per gallon after rising 25 cents for the second consecutive week. AA also said pump prices were $1.40 higher than a year earlier. For drivers, that change is direct. A commute that was already part of the routine becomes more expensive. A family car used for school, work, errands, and appointments costs more to keep moving. A small business that depends on daily driving has to absorb more fuel expense or pass some of that cost forward. The Bureau of Labor Statistics showed the same pressure in the inflation data. Gasoline rose 5.4% in April 2026 and 28.4% over the previous 12 months. That matters because fuel is the part of driving that households see most often. The price changes on signs. The total appears at the pump. The charge appears on the card statement. But gasoline is not the full cost of staying on the road. Transportation inflation was broader than fuel alone. The Bureau of Transportation Statistics reported that the Consumer Price Index for all transportation goods and services rose 7.1% from April 2025 to April 2026. BTS also said transportation contributed 31.1% to the 3.8% increase in the price of all goods and services, with gasoline contributing the most among transportation items. Transportation was not a side issue in the inflation picture. It was a major part of the cost pressure facing households. For a middle-class family, transportation is often essential. It sits beside housing, groceries, utilities, insurance, and debt. When transportation costs rise, the household has fewer places to adjust. The pressure also shows up in auto debt. In the first quarter of 2026, the New York Fed reported that auto loan balances increased by $18 billion to $1.685 trillion. During the same quarter, $182 billion in new auto loans appeared on credit reports. Those figures do not mean every borrower is in distress. Auto loans are a normal part of vehicle ownership for many households, but they show how closely cars are tied to monthly debt obligations. A vehicle price becomes a loan. A loan becomes a monthly payment. That payment continues even when gas prices rise. Insurance is due, repairs are needed, and other household costs are increasing. That is how driving becomes part of the larger middle-class squeeze. It is not only the cost of buying a car. It is the cost of financing it, insuring it, maintaining it, repairing it, registering it, and fueling it. Kelley Blue Book and Cox Automotive reported that the average transaction price for a new vehicle purchased in April 2026 was higher than in March and above year-earlier levels, with a 1.8% year-over-year increase. That increase was not the entire story, and it should not be overstated. But vehicle prices matter because they influence the starting point for several other costs. A higher vehicle price can affect the loan amount, the monthly payment, insurance values, and what kind of vehicle a household can afford. For households buying a car, even a moderate price increase can matter once financing. Insurance, taxes, and maintenance are added. AA's ownership cost model helps explain why. Depreciation was estimated at $4,334 per year in the 2025 study. That was one of the largest costs of owning a new vehicle. Depreciation is not paid like a monthly bill, but it still represents value lost over time. Finance costs were estimated at $1,131 per year. That connects the price of the vehicle to the cost of borrowing. Insurance was estimated at $1,694 per year. That is another recurring cost that does not disappear after the vehicle is purchased. License, registration, and taxes were estimated at $813 per year. Maintenance, repair, and tires added ongoing costs per mile. Fuel was estimated at 13 cents per mile in AA's model, based on a 12-month average gasoline price of $3.15 per gallon for the period ending May 2025. By May 2026, AA's national gasoline average was above $4.50. That difference shows why fuel can quickly change the pressure drivers feel, even when fuel is only one part of total ownership cost. This is the structure behind expensive driving. The car payment is visible. The gas price is visible. The repair bill is visible when something breaks. But the full cost is spread across several categories, and those costs do not arrive at the same time. A family may pay the car loan every month. Insurance may come monthly or in larger installments. Registration and taxes may arrive on their own schedule. Repairs can come unexpectedly. Tires wear out with use. Gasoline has to be bought repeatedly. Together, those costs turn mobility into a continuing financial obligation. For many households, that obligation is difficult to avoid. Driving is how people connect to work. It is how many families reach school, stores, childcare, medical appointments, and relatives. In many places, a car is not simply a convenience. It is part of the basic infrastructure of daily life. That is why a higher driving cost can be more serious than a discretionary price increase. A household can delay a vacation. It can avoid a large purchase. It can reduce some entertainment spending. But if a worker needs a car to get to work, the car has to stay on the road. That creates a practical problem. When fuel rises, the same routine costs more. When insurance rises, the car costs more even if it does not move. When repairs are needed, the expense can arrive suddenly. When loan balances are large, monthly payments reduce flexibility. Driving costs compete with everything else. Groceries still have to be bought, rent or mortgage payments still have to be made, electricity still has to be paid. Credit card bills, student loans, insurance, and other household obligations remain. That is why the cost of driving is not separate from the cost of living. It is part of the same budget. The April 2026 data shows how transportation fit into the broader household picture. Gasoline rose sharply. Transportation goods and services rose over the year. Auto debt increased in the first quarter. New vehicle transaction prices were above year-earlier levels. AAA annual ownership cost estimate showed that keeping a new car on the road remained a five-figure annual cost. Each data point shows a different part of the same system. Gasoline is the visible pressure. It changes frequently and affects anyone who drives. Auto loans turn vehicle purchases into monthly payments. They create fixed obligations that remain even when other prices rise. Insurance, registration, taxes, maintenance, repairs, and tires create recurring or unexpected costs that households must plan for. Vehicle transaction prices affect the starting point for buyers entering the market. Transportation inflation shows that the pressure is broader than one item. The combined effect is what matters for ordinary drivers. A person does not experience these costs as separate economic indicators. A family experiences them as the cost of owning and using a car. For commuters, the pressure is direct. A fixed commute means fuel use is difficult to reduce quickly. If gasoline rises, the same trip costs more. If the car needs repair, the household may have limited choice but to pay for it. For families, the pressure spreads through the weekly routine. School trips, grocery trips, appointments, work schedules, and family responsibilities can all depend on the same vehicle. For small businesses, driving costs can affect margins. A contractor, delivery business, mobile repair service, or a local company with vehicles may face higher fuel, maintenance, insurance, or financing costs. Some costs may be absorbed. Some may be passed forward. Some may change how far the business can travel or how it prices service. For retirees or fixed-income households, the pressure can be harder to absorb. Income may not adjust quickly, but the costs of fuel, maintenance, and insurance can still move. For car buyers, the issue is affordability. A vehicle purchase is not just a sticker price. It becomes a loan, an insurance policy, registration costs, future maintenance, and ongoing fuel expense. That is why AA's statement that buying a car is one of the biggest purchases a person will make matters in this context. The purchase begins the cost structure. It does not end it. The current reality is that driving remains expensive because the costs are stacked. As of May 16, 2026, a listed regular gasoline at $4.51.7 per gallon. VLS showed gasoline up 28.4% over the previous 12 months in April. BTS showed transportation goods and services up 7.1% year over year. New York Fed data showed auto loan balances at $1.685 trillion in the first quarter. AAS 2025 study estimated the average annual cost to own and operate a new car at $11,577. Those facts do not mean every driver pays the same amount. Costs vary by vehicle, region, mileage, insurance profile, financing terms, driving habits, and local fees. They also do not prove that every car owner is in financial distress. The New York Fed reported that aggregate delinquency showed little change in the first quarter of 2026, with 4.8% of outstanding debt in some stage of delinquency. But the numbers do show that driving is a major cost category for households. They show that fuel is expensive, transportation inflation is significant, auto debt is large, and ownership costs include much more than gasoline. The accurate story is not that gas alone is making driving unaffordable. The more complete story is that the cost of driving has become a stack of expenses. Fuel, financing, insurance, depreciation, maintenance, repairs, tires, registration, taxes, vehicle prices, auto debt. For a household that depends on a car, those costs do not remain separate. They meet inside the same monthly budget. That is why driving is getting more expensive in a way many families can feel. Not only at the pump, not only at the dealership, not only at the repair shop, the pressure comes from the full cost of keeping a vehicle on the road. And for households already managing groceries, housing, utilities, insurance, transportation, and debt, that cost can make the monthly budget harder to stretch.